Hi, this is Gloria, your life coach. Welcome to another episode of Life's a Shuffle.
Hi, this is Ron Johnson, your life coach, leadership coach, motivational speaker, and health coach. And welcome to another episode of Life's a Shuffle. Again, we have a special guest. And again, he's back for another awesome podcast. Ryan Stanley, he's here. He's here to discuss one most important topic, which everybody has on their plate. I don't care how old you are, how young you are, how to create the life you want. So, Ryan, tell us.
Yeah, that's it. What's the secret?
Yeah, bring it on.
Uh, yeah, it's super awesome to be here. Like I said, really looking forward to coming back to be with you guys again. The interesting thing about that question is how to get what you want. From my experience, what's really interesting and unique about this is that in some capacity, many of us believe, first of all, that everybody wants all the same things. We don't sit there and make the time to think about it, but really and that's where a feeling of lack comes from to begin with. They feel like, if somebody feels like they want something that somebody else out there already has it. And so whether they're saying those words out loud, in some capacity, they believe that it's more difficult for them to have because somebody else probably wants it and is going to get to it first. So it really is interesting. I think the first point would be like how to get the life you want is to, first of all, and we kind of touched on this even before our call started, but you have to believe that it's possible and recognize that it is a unique path for you and it is a unique outcome and that you can have it. So first and foremost, I think, you need to, so I guess even before that, decide what it is, right? I think we might have touched on this a little bit before, but you really do need to make time to decide what that life looks like for you. And then believe and recognize that it is unique to your path. And actually, from my experience, again, by realizing that it is so unique to you, it almost makes it easier to believe that it's possible, right? You have a better understanding once you start to put kind of like the math of the odds of you even being alive, right, to begin with, that you're here and you're on this life and on this earth right now. So to decide what you want to do with it, I think it's the most important decision there is, followed shortly by that you can actually make it possible. So those are the first two steps, and then of course take action on it every day. And I don't want to sit here on a rampage to sort of talking. But the only other thing that I'll add to that is patience, right? So I think the other biggest challenge with people not living the life they want or quote unquote getting the life they want is because they give up too easily and they think it's not attainable, or they'll try for a week or a month or even a year or whatever. But sometimes the life that you want, there's a lot of moving pieces depending on when you start. It doesn't really matter how old you are. You can always get the life you want. But there is some reconditioning to do sometimes. And so if you spend 35 to 40 years living a certain way and having a certain type of thoughts and surrounding yourself with a certain type of person, and then suddenly to change, it certainly will and can happen, but it might not necessarily happen as quickly as we would like it. So patience with yourself and patience with the outcome, I think, is another major factor in there.
Ryan, you know what? Damn it. That's a lie. I want it now. I don't want to wait 6 years. I don't wait 10 months. I want it today.
Yep.
You know
And
what?
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was going to touch on this. I'm working in the fitness industry, and obviously there's thousands of products out there. Lose 10 pounds in 10 days, lose
Yeah.
1,000 pounds in 30 days, and go on and on. And what I've experienced myself being in the fitness industry is that um, I don't know if it's a human condition, but I'll talk about this. The human condition is we have to get things. I want things now, and I want it in a short amount of time. And if it takes longer than a short amount of time, I give up. So let's say, for example, someone wants to lose 20 pounds, right? They go into a training program, whatever, and 2 3 weeks later, they haven't lost a pound. They get
Yeah.
frustrated, they quit.
Yeah.
Then guess what? They quit already. They come back again, let's say a month later, and say, "I'm going to try again." They get frustrated, quit again. So it begs the question: is how to create the life you want? Is there a human condition that we need to understand?
I think there's probably a bunch of them. I think there's habits, right? When it comes down to what are your habits, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, what are the habits that you are reliving over and over and over again? And that could be considered, to answer your question, a condition, right? That people are just used to being who they are or who they were influenced to be by their parents or their upbringing or whatever. So the human condition is really not being able to recognize that you are stuck in some sort of a cycle that is not serving your purpose or not serving this goal of change, of growth, or whatever it is. So you really need to be to recognize what the condition is. You really need to be able to recognize, to step outside yourself. And to your point, ask important, powerful questions like, is my daily behavior getting me where I want to be? And then the other piece to it is some sort of acknowledgement and validation of yourself. I mean, to your point, for the person who starts working out, even so, as an example, myself, This year, I've been doing a lot more exercise than I've done in the past, and I'm not anywhere close to your level of fitness, Ron. But even in like so I do like a Sean T25 type of thing. My wife and I have 25 minutes morning. Each morning we do it, and literally, I haven't lost any weight in probably 4 months, but I know that I look better, right? So there's other things going on underneath the seams. Like it's not always just about the one outcome as much as it may be about the whole outcome. And so also giving yourself some acknowledgement and validation of the work that you've done and what you actually have created, even if it doesn't equal the exact outcome that you had desired right on day one, it doesn't mean you're not moving towards it. It doesn't mean that there's not outcomes to already celebrate.
So, okay. Wow. I have a question, but this might be similar to what Ron had just asked. If everyone has dreams of living their life on their own terms.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say if you're not living the life you want, how do you get clear on what you want and how do you stay committed to it?
And those are two different things. So it's a great question because the one is clarity, but the other one is commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So clarity just comes from asking yourself not only the right questions, but them consistently and daily. And so that kind of goes with the commitment as well. So if you were to ask yourself on day one of 10,000, what do I want my life to look like? And you really made time to write it out and get clarity and ask yourself questions to make sure that it's exactly what you want, which by the way, and note that it can change. And then you don't ask yourself that question again, even though you start taking action on it, but you're not really getting clear on what the outcome is 1,000 days later. You're still not going to have, you need to remind yourself, I guess, is really what I'm getting at the clarity point. So part of taking action and part of the commitment of actually getting it done and not giving up is reminding yourself of your why and reminding yourself of that clarity on a daily basis. Because so many different things happen to us in life. Life is crazy adventure, especially in 2020, right? You never know what the next day or month is going to bring.
Yeah.
And so to be steadfast in who you are and to remind yourself subconsciously on a daily basis, for me, it's by reading out loud every day who I want to be, reminding myself. And as that changes and grows over my journey, then I'm able to make adjustments and kind of shape it to be more, because as you grow on the path, you start to be more of who you want, and you know what that outcome looks like more clearly than you did at the beginning. And sometimes it turns out that it's not necessarily exactly what you want, but had you not started on the path, you wouldn't have known that. And I think there's a difference between giving up and recognizing when it's not necessarily what you wanted to begin with. You just didn't know any better.
That's true. So if you have a vision or a clear vision in your mind of what exactly you want, so we just say maybe just stay focused on that and then just follow that path.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and be patient with yourself and decide how bad you want it. So, for example, I am a little bit of an ADD entrepreneur, right? So I have my book, I know we talked a little bit about that last time, but I have an online t-shirt company. I have my coaching practice. I have a sales training company. But one of the first things I ever did, like as a young person, when I decided that I wanted to create something in my life was I wrote a screenplay because I wanted to get into filmmaking. And I know like that's like the one thing that is definitely that film is going to be made, right? Before I die. Like that's like the one thing. Because it was one of the things that kind of set me on the path of what I got in it's a longer story that I'll tell right now, but basically I ended up where I am today because I wanted to make this film. And so one thing led to another, which led me to managing bands, which led me to, becoming a coach, which led me to, all the other things that I've done. But no, my point in all this is like I have patience. So I'm not annoyed or frustrated or stressed that this film has been made. In fact, I know that it will be made. And I know that what I'm doing now and who I'm becoming now is all part of that process. So depending on you, on what the outcome is that you actually desire, if it's something that is from a health standpoint is keeping you from being healthy or living a fulfilling life, then, get on it immediately. But if it's something that you really, it's just a dream, just keep it on the background at some point always, right? And knowing so again, I remind myself of that every day that film will be made as an example. But, don't judge yourself or, we go back to last time, judgment. Don't become judgmental about yourself for not getting it done, but be more curious as to how fast you want it done and what you're willing to do on a daily basis to get it done.
So that's the hard part about what makes it complicating for some of us with this is that when we have that vision or we have that dream, at the same time we have fears and doubts. And that's why we can't really sometimes live that life that we want because of those
Yeah.
fears and doubts.
So there's a trick there. So of course, that's the human condition, right? Nature, we are going to have fears. We are going to have doubts. We are going to have inner critics. We are going to have all the reasons kind of telling us, trying to quote unquote, keep us safe from venturing out of our comfort zone. So like anything else, it is a practice, it is a discipline, but also, it's not just deciding what you want, it's genuinely and authentically creating gratitude for that outcome already. Right. So it's what if you sit there and say, hey, I want to build this business, or I want to do this thing, and you are naturally going to have fears and doubts, right? But if you say this is what I want to have, and then you immediately just spend more time in the doubts and the fears, 80-90% of your day in doubts and fears, even while you're doing the work, you're really making the trip much longer. And so at any point, to genuinely, use your thoughts and intentional purpose to create elevated emotions like joy for the outcome and gratitude for the outcome, and sit and spend time in meditation or thought or whatever about what it's going to feel like and what it does feel like, because your brain as a physical thing doesn't know the difference between an imagined outcome and an actual physical outcome that you're taking part in. So to spend time not only thinking about the outcome and getting clarity on it, but to really each day create, I say it out loud, but in those moments when I'm reading out loud what I want my life to unfold to be, I in that moment also create gratitude for that outcome and spend time feeling it and thinking about it and enjoying life as that being. And I think when you do that, it builds up a habit, like not only like the habit of like doing it on a daily basis from a lifestyle standpoint, but also a physical habit. Like your brain physically then creates this thought process and creates chemicals that will serve that thought process and have less fear and less doubt. It becomes more of who you are and how you are. And those are the people that succeed in life, right? From a distance, it feels like, oh, they were always this confident, or they became confident after they got successful. But really, it's typically somebody who's thinking they've already felt the outcome, right? They're confident in who they are because they know that it's the truth, and that's when life starts to unfold. It's kind of like this weird
Mhm.
thing. The more you behave in a certain way, the more life actually starts to physically respond in that manner.
I have a question. You talk about celebrating in the moment you're trying to create this outcome. Like, so here's one other thing I'll say. Human condition. Human condition is this, which I did not know now, but I know now, is anything to us has to be tangible to be real. So to be successful, I have to have assets around me to say, look, I have a nice car, I have a nice home, bank account for the money to deem successful. So when you look at people like Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, oh man, these guys are super successful, but they spent maybe 30 years working on that outside the garage. How do you really create this internally? Because obviously everything is from internal. How do you create that to become external?
Yeah. So it is both, right? To your point, you do need to work at it. By no means am I insinuating that you just kind of sit in a room and home all day and then, money's just going to show up your door, though it can and will,
I
and
wish it
does happen in
did.
that way, right? Yeah, absolutely. So it does. And, but there's also, depending on what you want, there's, I think there's a responsibility to also kind of take action towards on every day. But I think to kind of go back to your point, Gloria, the
Mhm.
fears and the doubts, like, how are you utilizing the time that you're making the action? Are you taking action with fear and doubt in your mind? It's okay that it's there, but it's not really serving you. So do something about it. Choose to recognize it for what it is. Um, Spend time. But I think for me, a major difference has been to not only spend like a moment, because it is a practice. It's not always easy to just be grateful for something and imagine you have it and then not have it the next moment in reality. So, and I've kind of been on both sides of that. To where while I used to do a little bit of both, and then more recent in the past year, I've really kind of stepped up my game and spending more time actually in like 45 to 50 minutes to an hour at a time, like in gratitude for these outcomes and just feeling that and living that and being in that space to where it really just fuels the rest of my day. And by doing that every single day in a form of meditation and creating these chemicals in my brain that are bringing joy and gratitude and love and elevated emotions into my life, that's how your body starts to live. And so then when you're taking action, it's not like, oh my gosh, I have to get this done. Otherwise I'm screwed, or otherwise it's not going to happen. Oh my gosh, then it's not going to happen. Then you go into fears and doubts. What if it doesn't happen? It's spending time in gratitude for life itself and remembering that literally I know we've touched on this, but there's oxygen, there's sunlight, there's gravity all here just so that you can exist. What am I doing with it? If that's the case, then literally every single second of life is a gift. And if that's the case, what am I doing with it? So it doesn't have to be a chore of working towards this outcome that may or may not be, come to play, as much as it is being in joy, creating gratitude for life itself, and then taking action towards it. And this then doesn't become work, it becomes project, it becomes a hobby, it becomes your mission, it becomes your purpose, it becomes why you're here. And it's not a struggle. It's not even a question whether it's going to happen or not going to happen. It's why I'm here. And when it happens is exactly the way it's supposed to happen based on the life that I put into it And then, as the universe, as life, as a co-creator matches me where I'm at. And I believe that the more you start to step into it with joy and gratitude and take action at the same time, the faster the universe will meet you where you're at.
Hmm. So basically, it does take practice. So it's kind of like saying, don't expect a clear and well vision overnight because it won't happen overnight. And determining that course you will follow requires time and reflection. So now, how do you know what life is right for you?
Well, you get to decide. That's the great thing. Um, and once you decide, it can change. You can write it down in pencil and erase it in 6 months, 6 years, 10 years as things change. I'm certainly not the same person I was 10 years ago. Some of the same things I wanted, some of the same things I don't. But being on the journey of creating and seeking and building and connecting with people for the outcome will either bring you the outcome or bring you the awareness of that it's not necessarily the exact outcome that you want. And so to kind of answer your question, I say step into it with all of your heart, with all of your intention, with all of your gratitude. Enjoy the journey and look for, answers along the way. Always be asking yourself questions. Is this still what I want? And there's a difference between no, I'm not good at it, and it's what I want, but I'm not good at it, so I'm not going to do it. Versus, you know what? I've grown, I've matured, I've shifted gears on my path to seeking this. I've decided that I really also like this other path, which seems to align even more with my gifts. I didn't even know was an option, and so now I'm going to make a slight right turn. And I make a slight right turn, and I'm still now using the practice of joy, of gratitude, of intention, and I have a different clarity on who I want to be. Maybe had you not been on the steps of self development and personal growth, that often comes along with the path of choosing the life that you want, you might not have got to the point where you realize that there's different things in your life that you want to bring about. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. So it's asking yourself that question is the most important one is what do you want? What do you really want?
Yeah,
And sometimes though, I know I'm going to sound I sometimes it'll sound like I have doubts because I am speaking from experience here
of
too
course.
that the question sounds very simple, right? But it's also at the same time the most difficult one to answer. And then when you allow yourself to explore deep or to your deepest desires can be very, very frightening.
Tell me more. Why do you say it can be frightening?
Well, I'm just saying, like, I could be speaking for other people right now, right? Because
Sure.
let's say if they don't have that type of awareness, like as much as we do now, or that I
Yeah.
do now, um, it could be that there's something that I really, really want and what I want to be, or who I want to be, and what I want to do in the future. But if I dig deeper and I reach down, it could be scary or frightening because I don't know if I could do it. And again, it comes down to the fears and the doubt. Or will I be good enough to be able to reach that? Or am I going to be able to reach that high? And I mean,
Yeah.
it could be about success in life.
Well, and to be honest with you, that's a great point. So here's the interesting thing about what you just said is it goes back to so the first thing in that example, right? The person who's having that challenge, what
Mhm.
I would recommend is the first thing instead of worrying or even just spending time thinking about what do I want to be in the grand scheme of life, like what I want my successful life to look like from a business standpoint, whatever. It sounds to me like the first step is what I want to be is somebody who's not afraid, who's not afraid of the outcome, whatever the outcome is, right? So then the first thing to do is start getting clarity around why am I afraid? And what can I be that today? So, each day I remind myself, I am somebody who is living on purpose. Like, doesn't matter what my occupation is, doesn't matter what my income is, doesn't matter what car I'm driving. I am somebody who is enjoying life, who is excited to be alive, who recognizes that every moment of life is a gift. And I'm excited. And today I'm striving to be the person who is the light that I want to see in the world and is, seeking clarity on, you know, of all things, whatever. So you can decide who you want to be today. And when you start to focus on that and decide what this way of being actually is, then that is your focus for now. And then once that becomes your daily focus, and you strive to understand, okay, now, and it might be a week, a month, a year, whatever, but that's the first place to start. Be somebody who it's not that never gets afraid. We all have fears, we all have doubts, but it doesn't mean we need to spend time living there, and it doesn't mean it has to be a way of life. And so, if that's what's coming up for you often and right off the bat, the first thing I would recommend is like working towards being the person who doesn't let fear get in their way.
And that's so easy said than done.
It
Go
truly is.
fearless.
It
So,
truly is.
so I'm gonna give you, Ryan. I'm gonna give you something about myself. So obviously, I've started my life coaching business, and my whole idea is transitioning from personal trainer, health coaching, to full time life coach. And what comes up to me as, I would say, here's the thing: is we always want to control what we cannot see. So I cannot see 1 year from now where my life will be, what I will be doing. But the hope is I'll be doing full time life coaching, right? So how do I myself get out of my head as, okay, because that worry comes up, like the small little gremlins we have, that fear, that doubt, uncertainty if you're doing the right thing. How do we just transition those to more freeing? Because right now, those fears and doubts and worries can be more immobilized than freeing.
Yeah. So again, that's like fears of the future. And so to answer your question, it's like control the now, right? So a year, so I can spend time thinking about where am I going to be a year from now? I don't know, but but I'm going to sit here and think, well, I could be in the worst place scenario, and that's where the fears and the doubts come from. Or kind of going back to your earlier, to even say, hey, maybe it's not who I want to be for the rest of my life. I don't know what I want my whole purpose to look like, but I can write down what I do want my life to look like a year from now. And I can write that down and think about it in every aspect. I want to have, I want to be a full-time practice as a life coach. I want to be living in this town. I want to be in this type of relationship. I want to drive this kind of car. I want to whatever it is. Like literally write it down for this is my for the next year. Here's my intention.
So set the
And
intention from day one then.
totally. And then each day remind yourself. And then so if you're spending 365 days, and let's just say an hour of each of those days, and we'll just so it's 365 hours focusing specifically on what you want the outcome to be, right inside your head. Like that's not even taking action, that's just doing the work. And again, it is work. It is something and that's why everybody doesn't do it. That's why it's not easy, and that's why most people let fears and doubts stop them. It's part of being human. But to be disciplined, in a physical fitness space, that is something that does take active action every single day, right? So this is the internal fitness space. And so it's the same thing. 365 hours in a year spent towards gratitude and joy and imagining the outcome and being there and feeling it with your whole body versus 365 hours of doubt and fear. Like what, you know what I mean? What is going to be the different results based on those two options? I don't know if I said that clearly, but you know what I'm saying.
I at least get it, but the funny thing is that, not funny thing, but I guess for most people, for our listeners out there, all three of us have done internal work, internal engineering, and most of us have continued to do this. So all these fears and doubts and all these frustrations are a continuing basis. So even though we're more aware and more consciously aware, it does not mean it doesn't happen to us. We are prone to humanness. We're prone to these things, but we are giving those things less power over us. So you always say, hey, the thing, action over fear, right? It's the only way to, debunk fear is take action, or faith over fear, take faith more than fear. So whatever you want to do, it's more or less setting an attention. Number one, when those fears come up, they're trying to keep you safe in the comfort zone. And on the other side of that is obviously wonderful life. So while these fears are keeping you where you are, outside that is a great new life that's unexpected. And one thing about life is that it's not determined. You can't say if I go this path, let's take, for example, I went to a great high school, I went to amazing college, I should have a great career. That's not how life really works. You hear it
Yeah.
all the time. So may go to Ivy League school does not guarantee a great job, right?
Yeah.
It's the work you have to put in to get what you want, or do you even know what you want? Because you would think that, well, if I set a tone of, say, go to great college, get good grades, I get my degree, I should have this path. It's not that way at all.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing progression towards whatever you want, if you know what you really, really want.
Always. And to be honest with you, it is the discipline of reminding yourself every single day that this is the case. And the people who are successful are the ones that, it's like, yeah, it's easy to say, oh, they knew what they wanted. Or from an outside, we can always come up with all the reasons that they got what they wanted, that it wasn't just them doing the work. But really, in the grand scheme of things, chances are that most people who are extremely successful, it's because they spend more hours of the day thinking about and taking action towards their success than more hours a day not. And so when fears and doubts come up, there's an opportunity for, and every single moment is an opportunity for us to decide what type of a leader we want to be, right? What type of a human we want to be. And so when those fears, and even if you're not, you haven't done mindfulness work or anything, well, now's the day to start then.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, so there's no, it's never too late. It's never too early. If you want the life that you want, your responsibility is to decide what that looks like and take action of it every day, and create gratitude for it. Because when you're physically creating gratitude, it is the opposite of stress. And anytime these fears and doubts come up, which they do, there's an opportunity for us to sit down. And it's not like this, like, well, at least I have my health, and at least, that it's not this, as from IPEC graduates, it's not this level 3 energy of coping with it. It's no, I have my health. Like, this moment is a gift. It's this level 6. It's this creative energy of, I can do whatever I want with my life. What am I doing with it? How can I find joy and passion and light in every moment of existence, in every conversation? And when I see someone across from me, no matter whether I know them or don't, recognize a bit of myself in them, and know that I want to be the light that I want to see in the world, so they can go on and do the same. Like, once you start living in that zone, and it does take time, it does take effort, but everybody's path is going to be different. And when you intentionally step into each morning and before you go to bed each night, reminding yourself, A, of how much that you have in life and what a gift every moment is, but B, what you want to create and who you want to be and how you want to show up, it starts to just happen. It sounds silly, but like anything else, the more you start to do it, going back to a fitness standpoint, if you never exercised before, your first day and week and month is going to be difficult and tough and feel like crap sometimes. And you're not necessarily even going to like the results. But had you not started that first week, month, or whatever it is, you're not going to get to the other end as well. So if any listeners are out there saying, well, hey, like, I haven't been a coach for 10 years, and so it's easy for you to say, you're absolutely correct. But so what do you want to do about that? I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely possible, and it takes time, and it takes effort. It takes persistence, patience. But if you want to put in that every single day, it's certainly worth it.
So faith also has a lot to do with this. If you have
Absolutely.
faith, right? Because faith overcomes fear, and then faith is bigger than fear. So
Totally.
I guess coming from this is I would base my decision off of my faith, not my fear,
Yeah.
because
And with
yeah,
gratitude,
and with gratitude. Okay.
right? So it's like, well, I know I should have faith. It's no, it's like, I'm stepping into this because the outcome has already happened and I'm ready for it. And I'm grateful for it. And I love my life and I can't wait to participate in it.
Yes. Okay.
And then
I
the only
got
other piece I was just going to say that is, faith. If you honestly have faith in the outcome, you can't have doubt and fears, right? So it's being clear on what your faith is, right? I have faith that this is going to be the outcome. Cool, but I might not do good. But you already said you have faith, so which is it, right?
make your
these are
mind up.
easy questions, but it is
Yeah.
an easy way to ask yourself, like, literally, okay, so which one do I have? Do I have faith or not?
Yeah.
That's a good one. You know what? Here's another one. So if you take the last part, how to create your life you want. Okay. The wants are created from two ways, Ryan. Is it the outer ones or the inner ones?
Explain to me just a little bit deeper what you mean by that, like physical
Okay.
things versus. Go ahead.
No, what I mean by that is that, so if you look at life, most time people will say what they want. Let's give an easy example. I want more money. I want a better car, bigger house, nice family, this and this. Okay. Is that a want that will prove to give us happiness? Meaning that, is that an outer want or inner want? So the inner want may say, hey, I want health, I want longevity of life, I want to help people. Which one is which, and which one's more important?
I think everybody's, so importance is a judgment, right? Depends on, everybody's on their own unique path. So in the grand scheme of things, happiness comes from within. That's almost the whole point we were talking about earlier. So at any given point, if you're sitting there and you think, hey, I'm only going to be happy if I get the house, the money, the car, then you're on, in my opinion, from my experience, you're on the wrong path. Or at least there's an opportunity for growth and awareness that you can actually have happiness at any given moment. And you can literally create happiness right this second. Like by sitting down, closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, put your hand on your heart, feel your heart and your mind, gaining coherence, and create joy for someone you love in your life, like unconditional love. If you have kids, if you have you're in a relationship with somebody, your best friend, somebody who really always makes you happy. If you sit and think about them with your eyes closed, breathe in deep, feel your heart with your hands, your body will create chemicals that will bring joy and happiness into your life. And if you do that every single day, it doesn't matter what car you're driving. Doesn't matter what house you live in. But when you start doing that and then thinking about, and I'm excited to create this path that is going to lead me to an awesome car and an awesome home and have a bunch of money, then you start enjoying that journey as well. And more often than not, these little miracles show up where they fall into your lap. So, which is more important? The inner. Everything is inner in my experience. Really, just three dimensional living is really just that our senses are telling us that all this stuff is on the outside, and right, and that life is. It almost feels like our senses make it feel like life is happening to us. But if we come from within and we realize that life is happening for us, and is an opportunity for us to kind of just step into each day and decide what we want to do with this thing called life that is happening for us, it's all inner. And so our imagination, anything we create, any when you decided to become a life coach, that all came from within. Somebody didn't come up to you and say, "Okay, Ron, now you have to be a life coach," right?
Oh no.
You came, right? You came from within. And you said, "This is my gift. I know that I understand. I've already been serving people in a physical space, and I want to take it to this other deeper level." And that all came from within. So
Wow.
really, at any given point, in fact, the fears and the doubts, those all come from without. That's all us basically worried about what someone else somewhere else thinks. If you feel like, hey, I'm not gonna make it in whatever this career path is, why do you feel that way? And what's the outcome? So let's just say you didn't. Why is that a bad thing? Is it because you're in society you look bad? Is it because to your family you look bad? Is it because to your friends? Is it like what difference does it make if you didn't make it in something that you wanted to do? Right. So all that is based on fear of judgment from others. But when we just step into it and really we're just doing everything out of from internal creativity and love and curiosity for having this experience in life and being able to step into it. And what can I do with it? What can I build? And those fears don't even make sense anymore because they don't serve the journey, and it has everything to do with everything that's going on outside of us. So inside of us, if we're constantly asking ourselves important, powerful, empowering questions about why am I doing this? Who do I want to be? Instead of asking calls like, why wouldn't this work? Or what do I do
Mm-hmm.
if I suck? You know what I mean? It's at every moment is a choice for us to think about. And it's not to say that life doesn't get in the way and doesn't get a little bit distracting or stressful or anxious. But those are the moments, like that's our body telling us, like, hey, when stress comes up and anxiety, and that's our body physically telling us that our thoughts are not serving our path. And so that's a real good sign for us to say, okay, well, if I'm feeling this uncomfortable about this thought, which is a fear of me not being good enough, then what is a thought that would physically make me feel good? Not better, like I'm not coping, but what's the thought that would make me feel great? Well, gratitude, love, joy, connectivity, compassion. These are all things that we can create at any given moment. And we start adding them to an intention of building a business that serves others or building a product that is just out there and is making a lot of money and making the world a better place, one place or another. That's when you actually influence the outside. So it's the internal. I think the ideal scenario is to create the internal to make a change in the external, not the other way around.
Yeah, so that's where so happiness comes within. And it's funny how you're talking about this because it just makes so much sense. I was just looking at my notes. I was listening to Sadhguru recently
Yeah,
on YouTube, and he did mention, and I wrote this down. He actually said this. He said, happiness in every human experience has always been internal, never been external. And that's what's funny about what you had just explained right now, where it just made so much more sense to me what exactly he meant by that.
yeah, and that's where it all starts. I mean, it literally all starts within. In fact, if you are stressed or overwhelmed because of something that someone else said or might think or something that is happening outside of you, you are at that point giving them power over your entire life by saying, I am sad because Joe, Susie, whoever said something. And we do get that way. I'm not saying don't ever be sad, but I'm saying like this just to kind of look at it from an external standpoint. I am allowing my brain and thoughts to go somewhere based on someone else's action, as opposed to at any given point, really just making my own thoughts and my own action that serves me by forgiving somebody for who you at some point felt treated you wrong. You are now opening up love, gratitude, compassion, and you have more control over your thoughts, and your life will unfold in a more peaceful and forward flowing way, in my opinion.
Yeah. So instead of reacting to it or overreacting, and so I mean I'm guilty about that sometimes. I overreact. I don't think and I react right away. So instead of that, maybe just take a
We're
step back.
responding.
Yeah.
It's the difference between reacting and responding.
Yeah.
You know, it's taking control of our thoughts. So as you know, I mentioned my IAMs that I say every day. I start them off with a paraphrased quote by Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. There's actually two of them. The first one is, I ask not for more riches, but for more wisdom to accept and to use wisely the riches that I received at birth in the form of the power to control and direct my thoughts to whatever ends I desire. And then the second one is, mind control is the result of self discipline and habit. You either control your thoughts and your actions or they control you.
Oh.
And so and actually mine is much more. I've expanded on it, right? And this is a great example. So we talk about like, okay, when you first write this down. So I wrote that down one day to kind of start off my IAMs or my North Star, what I say every single day. And as I've kind of gotten into it and gotten used to it, I've expanded it to make it more of my own. So now I say, I ask not for more riches, but for more wisdom to accept and to use wisely and consistently and daily and efficiently and with love and with gratitude and joy the riches that I received at birth and I still possess in every single second in the form of the power to control and direct my thoughts to whatever ends I desire. And instead of just mind control is a result of self-discipline, I say, mind control, daily, consistent, purposeful, loving, grateful mind control is the result of self-discipline and habit. And I'm imagining and I'm feeling like these elevated emotions about gratitude, about controlling my thoughts to bring about the life that I want. And by stepping into that every single morning and every single night, I am to kind of go back to the start of this conversation. I am creating a habit, a physical, mental habit of feeling joy and gratitude and taking control of my thoughts, not necessarily to get more money. That's just going to be one of the bonuses
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not only going to get more money, but I'm going to get more life and more love and more connectivity and more adventure because those are the things that I'm using my thoughts to control and think about and bring into my life.
Okay, that's a good one. But how can you be happy with just having what you already have?
How can you?
Yeah. How can you or how can someone just be happy and be grateful with what they already have?
Well, they make time to do that. They literally need to go down and make time. What is great about what I have? Well, and to generally, and the other thing is to start showing gratitude more often publicly, meaning vocally is probably a better word than publicly.
Mhm.
Like some little tiny things. If somebody, it's not just like, hey, thanks for giving me that cup of coffee. It's, depending on your living situation, if you live with anybody and they do anything for you whatsoever, or maybe it's just for the family or for the household, to thank them as often as possible. And the more you start thanking them, the more you start to realize how much you have to be thankful for. The other piece to kind of answer your question that came up for me right now is a gratitude journal, or is even just making a gratitude list. Like, so if someone's having challenges coming up with gratitude, and that's okay, that's going to be a response to their whole life. But then if you want to have more gratitude, make time for it. Like you might make time to sit down and watch a favorite show on Netflix or something like that. Instead, make time to create a list of 100 things that you're grateful for. And they could be as simple as a smile. It could be, I'm grateful for running water. I'm grateful for sunshine. I'm grateful for, like, there's always something to be grateful for.
Right.
And when we start to people who are like, well, I'm living in a house that I don't love. I'm living, my car's kind of crappy. I'm in this place. Well, be grateful for it because of all the things that it gives you. Shelter, ability to travel, whatever, all the things that are, and it's not, again, not like, well, at least I can drive. It's, no, I have a car that I can go outside right now and get in and put a piece of metal into, and then it starts up and takes me, miles away in a short amount of time.
Mhm.
And love being in that car and love listening to, oh, and it plays music too. Oh my gosh, I can listen to music while I'm driving now and traveling through time and space,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
There's always an opportunity to create gratitude. It's just about developing the habit of doing it. And the more you start to do, the more you start to be grateful for gratitude. As part of my morning routine, I also have like a journaling piece. And there, in each morning and at the end of each day, there's 3 spots where I write down what I'm grateful for that moment. And sometimes I'm grateful for love in all its forms. Sometimes I'm grateful for tomorrow. If I've had a bad day, a lot of the time at the end of the day, my gratitude is going to be, I'm grateful for tomorrow because I know that I can start over and continue on the journey.
Is your IAMs, is that something that you live by
Do I live by my IAMs? Oh, Gloria, I don't know if I lost you there.
I think you lost it. I think she's trying to say, do you live by IAMs daily?
I do my IAMs daily, twice a day, sometimes 3 times. Some of the things are yet to be manifested. but a lot of them are, yeah, absolutely. They are. It's basically, it is my blueprint. It is my what is it? Blueprint for my life. It is my my North Star. It is what I utilize to decide the direction that I'm headed in any given moment.
That's
And
Okay.
awesome.
by having them written down and having that as a space, I can always, if I'm challenged with the direction that I'm going in my life or my career or any aspect of my life, I can say, does this align with who I plan to be, and talk about and I am being every day internally. And if it's not, then it's an easy decision for me to shift gears.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. I think I accidentally pushed the mute button here, so I didn't understand what was going on.
I hate when that
Thank
happens.
you.
But did I answer your question? Was that correct?
Yes, you did. You did. That was it. Yes. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah.
I want to explore one thing, Ryan. So you always mentioned earlier about anxiety. So like you get that pit in your stomach when you're about to do something. What did you mean by that? When you get the anxiety and it comes up, can you explore that a little more definition on that?
I guess like when people feel stressed, they feel overwhelmed, they feel uncomfort with going out in a social place. Like there's all sorts of different anxieties. Um, and typically it just comes down to some sort of fear of not being good enough, not being good enough in conversation, not being good enough in success, not looking good enough, not feeling good enough. Like those are the reasons that anxiety comes up and stress, right? It's we're worried about what someone else somewhere else thinks or is going to think, or what they're going to say, or what they did say, or what their judgment is of us. Typically, when we have stress or anxiety, if it's in a work situation, like, hey, I haven't done the work that I'm supposed to do, I have anxious anxiety about my boss or colleagues thinking of a certain way about me because maybe I'm not good enough at my job. All sorts of different things, like all the different reasons we get uncomfortable going out to meals with people or social situations. These are all different anxieties, and they're all based on separation. They're all based on other people being different from us. And when we start to remove that and recognize and go to the opposite of it, inclusion and unity and connectivity and empowerment, excuse me, and instead of coming from a place of competition, we come from a place of love and generosity, those anxieties will dissipate and or not be around for very long. Like it's not to say that I don't get stressed or uncomfortable or anxious, but I know exactly when it's there, and I immediately, like, get out the fire extinguisher and start asking myself, how is this thought serving me? Is this feeling bringing something about that could serve my purpose? And 9 times out of 10, it's not. There are certainly people who are motivated by fear. And I think that it can be a short-term motivator.
Hmm.
Again, going back to the IPEC peeps out there, that level 2, somebody yelling at you to get your job done, it gets work done. But in the grand scheme of things, if it's not a place to create from. And so to kind of answer your question, when you start feeling these feelings of stress or overwhelm, you feel it in your stomach, you just kind of feel it in your mind or whatever. This is your body showing you the temperature. Your body is saying, like, hey, these thoughts are creating this. So what do you want to do about that? Do you want to, and then, but more often than not, 90+% of us sit there and look at another thought that's going to make us feel even worse. Instead of asking ourselves, it turns into this cycle, like a little circle of thoughts, which lead to another thoughts, which lead to other thoughts, which lead to stress. And then we start feeling stressed. And then we start feeling, or we have thoughts about the stress. And then we start, it's this terrible cycle of stress and anxiety and overwhelm. And that's why, in the book that I wrote, Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, we talk a lot about recognizing these anxieties and deciding that you are creating them. You are creating stress in your thoughts. You are creating thoughts that are not serving you. So knowing that we're always creating something, right now the three of us are creating a podcast, right? You wake up
Mhm.
in the morning, you decide to put on blue socks, blue pants, blue shirt, blue hat, you're creating a person dressed in blue. So we're always creating something. When we write down words and a piece of paper, we put a period at the end, we're creating a sentence. We're literally always creating. Even if you are asleep, you are creating a person who is sleeping. So when we are stressed, we're feeling overwhelmed, we're feeling anxiety, we are creating those. It doesn't mean it's not valid. It doesn't mean it doesn't make sense based on our life up until that moment that we are creating those. But it's just important for us to be aware that we are creating those thoughts and typically in a reaction to life. And so to kind of go back to our point earlier, from that point, once you start to feel these feelings of anxiety or stress or overwhelm, there's an opportunity for us to say, okay, what am I creating right now? I'm creating stress. Cool. Not cool. What would I rather be creating? Well, and that's why, so the book is Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful. First chapter is called Be Patient, right? Once we've established you're a creator. So typically when people are stressed, one of the main reasons is as we alluded to towards the start of the call, start of the conversation, is they want something to be done now. and they're overwhelmed that it hasn't happened already. And sometimes it's just, hey, I just want to feel better right now, and I don't want to wait to feel better. So that is a level of impatience. And so you can ask yourself, what does a patient person feel like? How could I, if I wanted to, hypothetically speaking, create patience in this moment? What would that look like? What would that feel like to me? How does a patient person behave? And then based on the information that you know, and by asking that question, your brain actually looks to answer it, right? So if you say, how does a patient person behave? The right side of your brain gets creative and is like, well, I guess it behaves like this, and this is how a person would feel. And then you can start to take action on that. And so to create patience in the moment, so you're not waiting on anything, you know that everything is going to turn out the way it's supposed to. And my job then is to create thoughts that serve that in the most efficient and effective manner. And then chapter 2 is be present, right? So now you're not waiting on anything any longer. Be here now. What are your five senses doing? Can you feel the air against your face? What do you hear nature to some capacity? Do you smell something? Do what, be here now. And if you're not worried about the future, you're not worried about what something happened in the past, you're present. Because there really is only now to begin with anyway, right? We all just have a whole bunch of nows that are always happening. There's always now. And our memories are past nows that we typically are actually, to be honest with you, more often than not, not remembering appropriately anyway. And a lot of the time we remember them worse than they actually were, as part of this kind of stress and fear of being judged mechanism. And the future doesn't really exist because it's a future now that we are imagining to be a certain way. And so how do you want to imagine it? So be here now, enjoy the now, and think, if you want to think about the future at all, think about it in a way that serves you and the path to get there. And then chapter 3 is be joyful, right? So you're already patient, you're here now. So how would you rather be feeling? What would it be like to create joy? How does a joyful person behave? What was a moment in my life when I was really joyful that I can remember? Can I think about that now? If I'm not worried about stress, I'm not feeling about being someplace else, I am here now. I'd like to smile, stretch, pet an animal, think of somebody you love unconditionally, send a text to somebody who you love, just letting them know that you love them or respect them, or make them, giving out love. You are creating it within, and you're creating joy within as well.
You know what? When you talk about this whole thing about stress, so I talked about some on my podcast yesterday. I posted that probably later this week. But so I had a situation come up. What was it? Friday. So long story short, Ryan, I got married when I was 21. Okay,
Yeah,
21. You don't know anything. I barely
of
know
course.
anything at 37. So I
Right.
got married. Obviously, 2 months later, we were filing for divorce. We never filed through the paperwork. And 13 years later, I'm technically still married by law. But God knows where she is. And I had to go through a lot of ways to find her. So I found her. We finally got the paperwork signed again, the process for default, and get this thing over with. I was so stressed Friday because I'm this kind of person. I want something done. I want it done now. I'm not going to wait. I'm not being patient. So I'm creating my own stress to an expectation.
Yeah.
So when I looked online, doing case number, you can look online, see what's happening, the process, all that stuff. I was like, okay, got to the judge. It's going to get final stamp. It's been 13 years. We don't have kids together. We don't have anything together that ties. We haven't even filed. We haven't even talked in probably like 12 years.
Right.
So the funny thing about this is then on Friday afternoon, I obviously do my routine thing. I'm checking almost, daily, at least 3 or 4 times a day, see the status. It says rejected. Oh my goodness. Right then and there, my heart sunk. I was like, how
Yeah.
can this happen? Because what happened is the reality is it always says rejection. It doesn't tell you specifically what was rejected. It can be simple as a name was misspelled. It can be as
Right.
simple as that some paperwork
Yep.
wasn't filed. But our minds tend to create all these outcomes that are worse than what it actually is. So my outcome is like, man, I pay more money for my lawyer. I got to do this. I mean, I pay more for that. It's just all these things. And I should have been patient. Okay, well, let's wait till the lawyer gets the information and see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell myself. And I have to laugh about it too, because if I wait 13 years, what's another 6 months?
Right.
That's the only way I was able to feel better, because I was really just pissed, because then what happens too is all these old memories come up that happened 13 years ago
Worse.
of the situation, because it's like, what the hell? I want us to be over with and done with ASAP. So it brings back to your point about being stressed and impatient. I was impatient. I was checking all the freaking time. Like, I mean, every couple hours, I'm checking. And when the outcome that I expected, my expectation was attached to an outcome of it should be stamped and we should be done. So I'm ready to move on, pretty much.
Yeah.
And she's already moved on and all that stuff. So when we brought up that, it made me think about what I went through just a couple of days ago, just Friday.
Mhm.
Yeah. And again, listen, certainly there's nothing to everybody and anybody out there. We all do that all the time. I do that all the time. That it's part of it's part of life, right? And I love that you recognize it was having expectations, right? That's one of our biggest challenges. We have expectations of other people. We automatically set ourselves up to potentially be disappointed if they don't meet those. So in that space, though, to recognize like, okay, hey, I don't like how I'm feeling right now. I don't like that I'm stressed and overwhelmed about this. What can I do about that in this moment, right this second, right? I don't even know the judge's name. It's not like I can go to his house and talk to him about it. I've done what I can do. So what can I do? What else can I do? I can take a moment to decide who I want to be right now and actually ask myself that question. How do I want to be feeling right now? And take action towards it in the moment. And in the next 5 to 10 minutes, whatever it is, just think about it. Take a moment to be present and to relax and to close your eyes and to, our bodies are literally, so we're all, obviously, we see these meat suits walking around, but we're really all physically just made up of molecules and atoms. And so, which is technically energy, right? And so all sorts of we literally have, some people call it an aura, but you can measure energy around us, right? That is physical there. It comes from all the atoms that are in our body that are functioning. And so sometimes if I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, like I will just sit present for a moment and I will literally think about the energy that's around me, like as nothing up but energy, right? There's no emotion attached to it. It's just I'm just thinking about it, and by doing that I'm actually bringing myself more present than ever, because I'm literally just here right now. I'm not thinking about anyone, anywhere. I'm just being myself. I'm creating joy and thinking about the energy that's around me. And it does bring me to a point of presence. And I say, who do I want to be in this moment? And it was the other day I was lying in bed and I was just, it's really funny to say, but I was sitting there lying in bed and I just woken up a little bit and I was relaxing and I started thinking about this energy that was kind of surrounding my body, and I was smiling and I just started thinking about just being grateful for life itself, like just really being blessed to be alive, and who I want to be and how I want to spend my day. And my wife says, she kind of looked over at me, said, "What are you doing? What are you doing over there?" And I just said, I'm creating gratitude." And I kind of laughed at myself. But that's literally what I was doing. I was literally creating gratitude in the moment and feeling the energy around me, like be responding to it. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of I was responding to the energy, knowing that it was there and creating gratitude and joy to put into it. And she could feel it. Like it literally, I don't know if she saw me smiling or whatever, but the fact that it just kind of came out of nowhere. What are you doing over there? Creating gratitude. It was a pretty fun place to be.
So again, it's just be patient, be present, and be joyful. So while we're on this topic right now, Ryan, would you give our listeners talk about your book a little bit and where they can get them?
Yeah, happily. Thank you so much. So I did got so here's the deal. Like I have been in personal development for many, 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 many years, and I am not an awesome reader. So I
I'm
actually I
not
can totally
either.
change that statement. I don't enjoy reading as much as I enjoy other things, I'll say. And so like a lot of the time I'll be reading and I get like, I have to read the same page over and over and over again. My mind just easily wanders, and especially when they're deep concepts that I enjoy learning about but just don't enjoy reading about as of now. So and a lot of time they're longer books, right? So the great books out there, but they're 300-400 pages long. And it's like, okay, so now I have to spend the next 13 hours taking all this information in. If I'm having a stressful day or an overwhelming day, where do I even begin? And so I wanted a book that I could just find and open and read in a short amount of time. I wanted, if I'm having a tough day, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I just noticed that with my clients and with friends, and even with myself, these concepts of patience and presence and joy were consistent. They were things that anybody can do. It doesn't take, you don't need to do years of research or tons of practice to really be present in the moment. And the book is intentionally made so that there's little tips. It's written very conversational. It's very layman's terms. It's really just my voice is kind of talking a lot like I am today. And so I just wanted to. So it's written with two plans, really. The first one is that if you've never read it before, you could sit down in 25, 35 minutes and just read it straight through and take away some of these concepts that we've talked about today: being a creator, creating patience, creating joy, creating presence. And then there's an epilogue which talks about just the value and keep going and persistence, right? So now that you are all those things, don't stop, like keep going. Like even on your worst day, keep going. On your best day, keep going. Like you only get off of your purpose in life when you stop being on your purpose of life. You have control over that. And so that's what the epilogue goes into. And so you can read it straight through in 35 minutes, take these concepts with you. But then secondly, it's also physically created to be a first aid kit that you can carry with you. And it's small in stature. You can put it in your pocket. You can put it in your purse. You can put it in the glove compartment of your car. But at any moment, if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, you just open it up to any page and it's literally created to where there's something on that page that could serve you. So if you're one of those types of people who just says, "Oh, I just want to see what the universe has in store for me today," this is a perfect book because you can just find any page somewhere and there will be either a quote from someone else, a quote from me, an illustration, or there's band-aids, what we call band-aids in there. There's CPR, which are just other blurbs of wellness and mindfulness information. And so you could really open at any point if you're feeling stressful and see what life has for you. You can go to my website. So first of all, you can obviously get it on Amazon, you get it on Barnes and Nobles, wherever books are sold. Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, a first aid kit for the emotional bumps, scrapes, and bruises of life by Ryan M Stanley. But you can also go to ryanstanley.com and on the top of the website, you'll see a button that says Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful. If you click on that, you can order a book right from there. If you buy one directly from me, you'll get a signed copy. And then depending on my availability, I'll also hopefully a complimentary coaching session.
You know, I read the first page of the book because I just got the book the other day, and I really like how you talk about creating a sandwich: lettuce, tomato, and bread. And guess what? You got BLT.
Yeah.
And it's really the fact is in life we're always creating, but be intentional with what you're creating. Like you talk about anger. If you're angry, like I did the other day, it's really fundamental. So about the aura, right? So when I was angry about this, my dog was sitting right next to me. Next thing you know, his paw is on my chair. He's looking at me.
Right.
He felt something. I didn't bang my foot, but my head was down. I was like, I can't believe this. When you're thinking about this, your body goes through animation, right? That's just the reality. He knew something was wrong. And
Totally.
it takes, things are a process. So it's not immediately we always feel, okay, we should shift. You got to think about things. I got to think things through. I had to think things through, and eventually I was able to calm myself down. And by the next day, I felt much better. It's just a moment of process because I had to tell myself, which I see when this first happened, and I created this anger. Opposite was the opposite force. So when I created anger, I also created opposite force. The opposite force, which maybe is the self, the big S, not the small s, inside
Mm-hmm.
my gut says, Ron, in life, things are always small. It'll be okay. That's all it
Yeah.
said. But what happened, that was small, so it wasn't radiating as much as anger was, right?
Yeah.
But over time, it transitioned where that small self came up. So the big self came up, anger went down, and says, hey, I bet it's something small.
Totally. And the great part about that is the more we practice that exact exercise, the shorter it takes for the anger to go away. Right. When you immediately just go to within a minute of how would I rather be feeling right now? Let's start there. So I know, but the judge and the 13, I know, but how would I rather be feeling? I know, but then there was like, it was supposed to be rejected. It's like all our brain gives us all the reasons to still stay angry. Right? But I want to stay angry. It's almost like I want to be right. Would you rather be right or happy? So I choose happiness. And then from there, you have a calmer and more present ability to diagnose the challenge and what the best next steps are anyway. So really, typically in those moments of stress or anger or overwhelm, we're not even in our best ability to really make the best decisions anyway. So if we really want the outcome to be better in the end, from my experience, it makes more sense to also come from a calm, intentional, purposeful mindset.
Yes, I totally agree. That's what I had to do. Come in a better mindset, because then I create that too. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what I did.
And here's another real quick tip for anybody out there who has a similar situation, right? And obviously, I mean, it sounds like 13 years later, this is something enough to make anybody annoyed or stressful. Um, that being said, it's like something that I've done in the past is if something comes up that makes me angry or stressed, or I'm worried about a behavior that I did, whether it be I mess up at work, or maybe I said something at a party, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that, or whatever. These different things that we judge ourselves for. Um, you know, it's the 10 rule. So how is this going to affect my life in 10 minutes? Well, it might and likely will, depending on what it is. How will it affect my life in 10 days? Well, it could, it might. I don't know. It depends if I see that person again. Depends on how things are going at work, whatever the challenge was. How will this affect me in 10 weeks? Well, by then I'll probably have forgotten about it, but it might still bother me, depending on what it is. Cool. How will this affect me in 10 months? Well, chances are it won't at all. In fact, I probably won't remember it. How will this affect me in 10 years? 10 years, I have no idea who I'll be, so it doesn't really matter. And then by doing this, you start to really get an idea of what the severity of this challenge is and how much weight we're actually just putting on it for no apparent reason. And so that's just a quick tip that I would mention to anybody. I've certainly used that with my clients before.
I'm gonna use it on myself. As soon as I get more stress, or anytime I feel something that I do not like. Because
Yeah.
it's funny about the divorce. If the divorce had been approved, I would have felt the same energy I would have if it didn't be approved. So I created each in any energy we created creators of it. Because I talked about this in my podcast yesterday. If I had been happy, if it had been approved, I've been jumping up and down so happy, right?
Yeah.
And because it didn't get a right way, I created another energy. So either
Yeah.
way, we're constantly creating some things in our body, but obviously one may feel better than another. That's the only difference is.
So instead of
Totally.
jumping up and down for joy, you were kind of down.
Right.
You had
So much
such
so
high
that your
expectations.
dog had to console you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and that's a great illustration. We're always creating something, so we get to decide what it's going to be. And here's
Yes.
another thing that just popped up for me. It's like, if you're in an argument with somebody, and so often as humans, we want to stay angry at that person for as long as possible till they basically come back and say sorry. Right? That's the general feeling of it. But and so that's one of those examples where we react quickly. And as soon as we react instead of respond, in my experience, that's the opportunity for growth. That's the opportunity to say, how long do I want to be angry like this? And it might be, if it's a minute later, if it's 5 minutes later, it's just reckoning that you don't have to say, hey, you were right. And you don't have to tell lies if somebody's behaving in a way that doesn't align with your values. But, to sit there and be angry and stressed and yell or spend any more amount of time allowing that experience, that conversation, that elevated angry conversation to have an effect on who you are now, really, as silly as it sounds, it just doesn't make sense. And it's something that we all do. But as soon as we start doing that, just to go back and say, hey, I didn't like it, whether you say it to them or you say it to yourself. Out of that whole conversation, I don't like that I behaved this way. This is not my intention. I prefer to be this way. And then leave it alone. I think as long as you're always being honest in your communication and any conversations, elevated, angry or not, if you speak the truth with love and intention, um, and things do get elevated, it's always easier to return to love, as opposed to if you're used to being angry or used to being stressed, that's where you're going to stay as well.
That's so true. Certainly true. Well, Ryan, you know what? As you said, we can talk about the subject for 7 hours, for hours on,
Yeah.
and I really love the fact that to create the life you want or the life you will expect to have, it starts within. I think most of us drive from, well, if I did this outer thing, whatever it is, I'll be much happier. Then I give my clients this analogy: if you want a mile long and there's a pothole every 100 foot, that's like creating outside happiness. You're happy in this moment. You go to another 100 feet, there's another pothole. You have to create more happiness because it always outer happiness. It's like striving after the wind. You're never going to catch it. But if you come within, there's no such thing as potholes because nothing to fulfill because it's always within.
Yeah.
So as we get ready to end this podcast, like I said, we keep going on and on. It's a really good topic because we deal with this daily. Myself, probably Gloria, and also Ryan, and those out there that are going through these tough times and difficulties, and starting a business, career wise. We're always here to help. So as always, guys, this is Ron Johnson, your life coach, leadership coach, motivational speaker, and health coach. And thank you for listening to the episode of Life's a Shuffle.
And again, by transforming our thinking and our actions, we can create opportunities for ourselves and change our own lives without waiting for outside forces to take hold. Ryan, again, thanks for joining us today. Um, this
Yeah.
is a lot of information, and thank you for sharing your book also with us and to our listeners. This is Gloria, your life coach, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Life's a Shuffle.